You won't believe what happened in my neighborhood. An 8-year-old girl was struck in the head with a bat by a man pretending to be an HOA cop. And the worst part? He had no idea who her father was, but he was about to find out. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It started on a quiet Saturday morning. I was out front working on my yard when I noticed a man pacing around in a black vest with bold white letters that read HOA Cop. At first glance, he looked official, clipboard in hand, radio clipped to his shoulder. But something about him didn't sit right. He didn't drive a marked vehicle. His vest looked cheap and the patch on his chest had frayed edges like it came from an online costume store. His name, I later learned, was Derek Miles. He wasn't part of any HOA board, and certainly not law enforcement. He was just a bitter man who had taken it upon himself to police the neighborhood, handing out fake citations and harassing families. That morning, Derek's attention turned to the Sanchez family across the street. Their little girl, Maria, was riding her bike in front of the house, pink helmet bobbing as she laughed and tried to keep her balance. She wasn't bothering anyone, just an 8-year-old enjoying her weekend. But Derek stormed up, barking at her about trespassing on community property. I froze, shovel in my hand, watching it escalate. Her father, Daniel Sanchez, wasn't home yet, and her mother was inside with their baby. Maria tried to ride away, confused and scared. That's when Derek snapped. He yanked a bat from the bed of his truck and swung it, not at her bike, but at her head. The crack echoed down the street. Maria toppled to the ground, motionless, blood trickling down her temple. My stomach turned as neighbors screamed. I dropped the shovel and ran, but Derek didn't even flinch. He puffed out his chest like some kind of tough guy, shouting about HOA authority and how the rules would be obeyed. It was sickening. He actually thought he was in the right. By the time paramedics were called and neighbors crowded around, Derek was already scribbling something on his clipboard like this was routine business. He didn't notice Daniel's black truck roaring down the street. He didn't realize the man he had just crossed wasn't just Maria's dad. He had no clue that Daniel Sanchez was a decorated detective with the county sheriff's department, someone who didn't take kindly to criminals, especially ones who laid a hand on his little girl. And Derek was about to learn that in the hardest way possible. Daniel's truck screeched to a stop so hard the tires left black streaks on the pavement. He jumped out before the engine had even cooled, his badge clipped to his belt, his face carved with pure rage. He pushed past the crowd of neighbors and dropped to his knees beside Maria. The paramedics were just arriving, carefully lifting her onto a stretcher. Her tiny hand dangled off the side, limp. Daniel grabbed it, whispering, "Daddy's here, baby girl. You're gonna be okay." When he stood, his entire presence shifted. He wasn't just a father anymore. He was a detective whose daughter had just been assaulted in broad daylight. His eyes locked on Derek, who still clutched that bat like a trophy. "Drop it," Daniel ordered, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the chaos. Derek sneered. "I'm acting under HOA authority. That kid was breaking the rules. I had every right." The words barely left his mouth before Daniel lunged. In one swift motion, he twisted the bat from Derek's grip and shoved him back against his own truck. "You laid hands on my daughter," Daniel growled, his face inches from Derek's. "You think some vest and a clipboard make you the law? You're nothing but a criminal." Neighbors gasped, phones up, recording everything. Derek's bravado began to crack. He tried to puff himself up again. "I was just enforcing community standards. You don't scare me." That's when Daniel reached behind his belt, pulled out his badge, and slammed it into Derek's chest. "You should be scared because I'm not just her father. I'm Detective Daniel Sanchez, and you just assaulted a child. My child!" If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. The color drained from Derek's face. He glanced around at the circle of neighbors, every phone aimed at him, every lens capturing his fall from fake authority. "Wait," he stammered. "It was an accident. I didn't mean." Daniel didn't let him finish. He barked at one of the deputies who had just arrived on scene. "Cuff him, now." The deputy hesitated, eyes wide, then snapped the handcuffs around Derek's wrists. Derek's voice cracked as he struggled. "You can't do this to me. I'm with the HOA. I have rights." Daniel leaned in close, his voice a razor's edge. "You're not with the HOA. You're a fraud with a costume vest, and the only right you've got now is the right to remain silent." The crowd erupted in murmurs, half in disbelief, half in grim satisfaction. For months, Derek had harassed families, trespassed on lawns, handed out fake fines, and now the truth had been ripped open in front of everyone. But this was only the beginning. Daniel wasn't just going to arrest him. He was going to make sure Derek paid for every second of terror he'd unleashed on that street. And Derek was about to find out just how far a father's wrath can reach. Daniel held Derek on the curb until the deputies finished securing him in the squad car. Derek's cheap vest and fake badge lay in the gutter, sodden with dust and shame. Neighbors who once swallowed his taunts now stepped forward, delivering statements, handing over videos, and pointing to months, years for some, of harassment. The truth unraveled fast. Derek wasn't an HOA cop. There was no such thing. Under 18 U.S. Code 912, impersonating a public officer is a federal crime, and striking an 8-year-old with a bat, that's felony assault with a deadly weapon, punishable under state law, with prison time that no judge could ignore. Daniel stood tall, his badge now clipped visibly on his belt. He wasn't just a furious father anymore. He was an officer ensuring justice. Make sure the DA sees every second of that footage, he told the deputies, and add charges for child endangerment and false representation of authority. Derek thrashed in the backseat of the cruiser, his voice breaking. You can't do this. I was protecting the neighborhood. I was the only law here. Daniel leaned down, his tone calm but sharp as steel. The law doesn't wear Amazon vests and swing bats at children. You're going to answer for every lie, every threat, and every bruise you caused. The crowd murmured in agreement. Mothers who once feared Derek's clipboard now spoke with courage. Fathers shook Daniel's hand. One man held up his phone. It's all live right now. Thousands are watching. After the paramedics loaded Maria into the ambulance, her tiny face pale but her pulse steady, Daniel climbed in beside her, squeezing her hand gently. Daddy's not leaving you, he whispered. Not now, not ever. As the ambulance doors closed, he locked eyes with Derek one last time through the cruiser window. No more swagger, no more fake authority. Just a broken man realizing the weight of the charges stacking against him. Within hours, the sheriff's office released an official statement. Derek Miles, 42, was booked on multiple counts: felony assault with a deadly weapon, impersonating an officer, child endangerment, and obstruction of justice. His bail was denied due to the violent nature of the crime. Neighbors flooded social media with clips of the arrest. News outlets picked it up before nightfall. The so-called HOA cop was exposed as nothing more than a bully in a vest, and his downfall went viral. In court, Daniel testified not just as Maria's father, but as a detective who had seen men like Derek before, men who thought intimidation was power. The jury took less than an hour, guilty on all counts. Derek was sentenced to 25 years in state prison. Daniel's daughter recovered physically after surgery and therapy. The scars were real, but the community rallied. Neighbors who once stayed silent became protective allies. In the end, the people who used fake power learned the cost of pretending to be something they were not. In the end, the man who thought he could terrorize a child learned far too late that some fathers don't fight fair. They fight to make sure justice is personal, permanent, and unforgettable. Did you think Daniel got what he deserved, or should he have gotten more? Comment below. I read every comment and I want to hear your own opinions. If you think folks who abuse authority should face real consequences, hit like and tell me. What would you have done if this had happened on your block?